PSA, public service announcements. We have one PSA this week that you want to know about in case it affects you. What is it, Blunty?
Yeah, so there were some counterfeit flash chips found on some boards, and we wanted to let people know about it, and then maybe kind of give a shout out to users and manufacturers to let them know, hey, keep an eye out for this stuff. The Holy Bro Kakute H7 Mini FC, in some cases, had what turns out to be a different 32 megabyte flash instead of 128 megabyte flash, and it was causing the flash not to work because it wasn't supported by Betaflight. Steve Evans found this and was able to knock it out. And if you go up to that top one and you click on the link there, the fixes, and click over, if you scroll down in that, Holy Bro actually made a comment at the very bottom there. Just wanted to make sure we noticed that. So they said, Vince with Holy Bro here. After the first production cycle, we found that there were a small percentage of the flash on the H7 Mini as 32s, marked as 128, so we immediately checked all our inventory and reworked at that time, but it looks like some made it out. So basically, they did find these, but some of them slipped out and were able to get out to customers. So, just be aware.
So the takeaway is, number one, if you have one of these boards with this flash chip, then your black box flash logging just doesn't work, but otherwise the flight controller is fine?
Yeah, and 43RC6, if you flash 43RC6, your flash will work.
But you only have a 32 megabit instead of 128 megabit.
Yep.
Which 128 is already pretty small.
Yeah, and the chip is actually labeled physically wrong.
Okay.
So it's like basically a counterfeit flash chip.
And so as far as we can tell, Holy Bro thought they were purchasing legitimate chips and was sold counterfeit chips.
Yeah, I mean, we basically know for sure that they're not silk screening. They're not printing chips. So they received chips with labels on them. And then some of them they tested and caught, but unfortunately some of them were able to make it out and do this. So that means
I'll get to that in a second.
That means that anybody buying flash chips, though, from any of these manufacturers, or anybody getting, products made by a OEM, needs to be double checking this stuff and making sure that, they have the right devices before they're getting off the line.
And these days, I don't blame any manufacturer for trying to get the things they need at a reasonable price, even if it means going to sources that might 3 years ago have been considered questionable. Like these days, to buy an official chip from an official source that you 100% know is what it says it is, you might pay 3 to 5 times as much as you would have just a year or 2 years ago. And so if, Holy Bro probably was just trying to keep the price of the flight controllers at a reasonable level and keep their profits at a manageable level. They bought from some gray market. I mean, I'm speculating here. They bought from some gray market source or some maybe less than reputable source, and they ended up with some counterfeit chips. But I do want to say that every time something like this has happened in the past, almost every time, the manufacturer says, like I'm thinking of the Gep RC. Gep RC had those, love you Gep RC. Gep RC Mark V, fantastic, you're amazing. Way back when in the past, Gep RC had that issue with the stacking pins between the ESC and the flight controller. And I was like, this is a big deal, no one should buy this. And they said, oh, it was just some pre-release boards, just a few of them, just like 30 of, they gave me a number, which was a big mistake. Oh, just like 30 of them went out to pre-release reviewers and testers. Don't worry, the production board doesn't have this problem. We've fixed it. And then I was getting emails 6 months or a year later that I was like, when did you buy it? And it was like, so they always say it was just a few and we caught them, but a few slipped out. I don't know how many actually slipped out. I'm not sure I believe that, but hopefully they've identified it. And if you have that problem, now you know, be on Betaflight 4.3 RC6 and it'll fix the issue.
Yep. A couple of people, Dwayne in the chat asked, were they counterfeit or the wrong size? No, they were actually counterfeit. They're labeled as a 128. They're physically showing as the wrong chip. And some of them out of the batches were correct, and some of them were not. They were 32s.
So they were mixed in with legit ones.
Yeah, as Dominic Clifton says, doesn't say much about the QA process that they didn't find or still ship them. I do agree with that. When you have a new batch of chips that you're laying on a board, like part of the process should be checking out of that batch and then pulling things that come from that batch.
Let me be contrarian because it's fun, and I like to disagree with Dominic Clifton sometimes, even though he's usually right. Like, if they're telling the truth, that the counterfeit chips were mixed in with legit chips, and if we assume that they have a QA process, which absolutely probably isn't as good as Dominic Clifton's QA. I would guess that Dominic QAs every single board he ships.
Sure.
But most manufacturers would pull a representative sample. They would QA, 5% or something. It's possible that if the number of counterfeit chips was low, it slipped through. Now, I would guess that Holy Bro they just manufacture and ship, and they don't QA any of them. That's just what I would speculate. But if some slipped through, I wouldn't think it was like inherently bad, depending on how many there were.
Yeah, we don't know numbers. We know that, a couple people have them. We saw an issue report, and then Steve also had one. So,
all right.
If you had this issue, if your flash doesn't work or you got some weirdness going on, know that it's fixed in RC6 and it's smaller than expected. And if you're a manufacturer out there, or if you're a user who has this problem on something else, know that this could be an issue moving forward. And especially with the shortages, I don't think it's the last time we'll see.
Well, this is not the last time, because we saw the exact same type of thing with the counterfeit MCUs on the ESCs that didn't have the temperature sensing. This was the same kind of issue.
That was not a counterfeit, though. They knew they were putting those clone MCUs on those boards.
Oh, it was clone, not counterfeit.
Yeah. So they were using an off-brand like clone MCU, and they were choosing those parts. So those were labeled as clones. However, these were labeled as the wrong thing. They purchased the thing, knowingly, and then it was the wrong. So.
Okay. One question that popped up in the Discord, Great Southern FPV wants to know, if you have Dominic Clifton could probably weigh in, but I think I know the answer. If you have like a hot air rework station and you buy the correct flash chip and desolder the other one and drop this one in, I'm 99% sure it'll just be a drop-in replacement, because Betaflight supports the chip.
Yeah, I would.
It auto detects the driver, and it's just an SPI interface.
I was gonna say, I think the leg count is the same and everything. So,
well, it must be the same. Otherwise, surely Holy Bro would have noticed. Yeah. It has to be a drop-in replacement. So if that's you, like the two of you out there who are going to do that and who own a Holy Bro flight controller, you could drop it in if you wanted to. All right. Good discussion there. Not just a PSA for people who own this specific flight controller, but a heads up, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
This is only going to become more common in the future. Get used to it, folks. We've peaked. There's a theory out there that we peaked around the time that the Matrix came out. That was the peak of sort of human civilization, and it's all going to be downhill from the 90s, the late 90s.
Well, I hope that's right.
All right.